My name is Toney, and throughout this video, I will be discussing who I am as a scholar, practitioner in training, and some of my subjectivities that I have discovered as I've been reading through the course material. I am first a daughter, a granddaughter. I am a wife to my husband. I am a 34-year-old white female who serves as a classroom teacher in a middle school in Coweta County, Georgia. Some of my background has influenced part of these positions that I am currently in. I come from a family where education was highly valued. I am a fifth generation educator, and both on my maternal and paternal sides of my family, I have educators ranging from cafeteria workers to classroom teachers to principals and a superintendent. Everyone in my family, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents have college degrees or higher. I was raised in a middle-class family in the South, in Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. Both of my parents came from middle-class families in the South, in Tennessee and Georgia. And they were all well-educated and highly valued education, as I stated previously. They were also raised to have very conservative values and were raised in the Southern Baptist Church. And I was raised the same way, even though later in life I kind of tended to drift away from that just a little bit and form some of my own opinions. And that leads me to some of these subjective labels that I identify with in Peshkin's reading. Peshkin mentions the community maintenance subjective label, the subjective I. He says that he felt this in various places, but really felt it very strongly in a local restaurant where regulars came to discuss their lives. I have always lived in the community where I've taught, so I have always run into parents or students anywhere that I go. And my mother, being a teacher, she also always lived in the community where she taught. So growing up, I was used to running into her students or parents or things like that, and we heard some of those same conversations that Peshkin talks about in talking about how much people love their community, love their schools, love their neighborhoods. As well, the justice-seeking subjective I that Peshkin writes, saying that he heard parents talk about their town and how residents from nearby towns denigrate their town. I have had that experience as well. I had the opportunity to work in what was considered the worst and now the best middle school in my county. And when I started teaching, I was teaching in that worst middle school, or the lowest, or however you want to categorize it. And when I would tell people where I taught, they would say, "I'm so sorry," to me. And I had the opportunity recently to revisit that school as part of a effectiveness visit to kind of rate their growth and what the great things that are going on at the school. And the students and the teachers and the parents all were stating the same thing, that many people in the same community still look down on this one school because of some past experiences that have happened. On the flip side, now that I teach in one of the best middle schools in the county that is showing some great growth and has some great test scores, people expect a lot more of the teachers from this school, and every other school is being compared to the school where I currently teach. So I have seen both sides of this coin, and so this justice-speaking subjective I really related to me and my experience. As well, the pedagogical malorist subjective label that Peshkin also notes, where he saw ordinary to poor instruction being given to students, is where I've also experienced some of that, and I've learned what practices not to repeat and what practices I do not want to do in my own work. Now I am surrounded by excellent educators, and I have some great, fantastic examples of practices that I do want to repeat and things that I do want to see in my classroom to help my students. Because of these experiences, I have my own personal strengths and weaknesses and affordances that have been allowed to me based on these subjectivities. The number one thing is community. I have always been in a background with education. My mother was an educator, her parents were educators, my father's parents were educators. I have always been surrounded and lived in the community where I've worked, and so have my family members. So there is a big sense of community within the education realm, and my family members were highly respected members of those communities because they were teachers in those communities. So that has given me a little, I understand and recognize that that is a strength that I have. That is an affordance that has been given to me because of my background. Similar to that is the bias of neighborhoods. I have always lived in relatively good neighborhoods and communities and taught in those communities. And I have also seen the flip side of it at other schools where I have taught. So being in education has afforded me the opportunity to see lots of neighborhoods and to see the biases that may or may not come with those neighborhoods. Again, being in education has also allowed me to watch and learn from other professionals and previous teachers. And so I have seen, again, both sides of that coin, where there are things that I have learned that I definitely do not want to do and practices that I do want to do and continue. Also coming with that, some of my limitations. I know my background has limited me. I have only ever known middle class families who highly valued education. That was my norm growing up. My husband was raised in a similar, very hardworking middle class family who also highly valued education. So we both come from similar backgrounds. I was not exposed to any other backgrounds really until I went to college and started teaching. So I have become more aware of those biases. The community, my family members, again, always taught and lived in the same community. My family members were always very highly respected because of their positions in the community. So I knew nothing else growing up. That is a limitation that my background has created for me, and bias. I've always lived in some of those better neighborhoods, gone to, quote unquote, better schools that come with some of that bias. So being in education has made me much more aware of my surroundings. And reflecting on that, I know that I need to be aware of my own subjectivities and modify my behaviors. I need to constantly reflect, to be aware of as many backgrounds as possible. My groups will help keep me accountable, and I'll reflect on my own statements and review the community that is sampled. Because of all this, one possible research topic that I would like to explore for a capstone or dissertation project is the MTSS process in middle school. I want to learn logistically how to better serve Tier 2 and Tier 3 students by streamlining the process and learning some new intervention techniques that will better serve secondary students. Thank you so much for listening.